There's a psychological trap that millions fall into daily, yet few ever recognize. It doesn't wear chains. It doesn't scream for your attention. In fact, it often feels familiar, even comforting. It's the habit of mentally living in the past. For many, this looks like replaying painful moments over and over again. The betrayal that never made sense, the missed opportunity that still haunts, the conversation that went wrong and demands to be reimagined with a better ending. Others are trapped in nostalgia, romanticizing better times that seem to make the present feel inadequate by comparison. Whether it's regret, resentment, longing, or guilt, one thing remains true. They are not living here. They are not living now. And the consequences are devastating. Psychologist and spiritual teacher Eckhart Tolle identifies this condition as one of the most destructive forms of psychological suffering in the modern world. Contrary to what many believe, dwelling on the past does not help us heal. It does not process the experience, and it does not make us wiser by default. In Tolle's words, you cannot find yourself by going into the past. You find yourself by coming into the present. Yet society encourages us to do the opposite. We're told to reflect, to learn from mistakes, or to never forget. And while those phrases sound noble, they often become code for looping pain, reinforcing ego, and avoiding life. According to Tolle, the mind, specifically the ego, cannot survive in the present moment. It thrives only in what he calls psychological time, the imaginary realm of past and future. Why? Because the ego needs a narrative. It needs a story that defines who we are, and it clings to that story with everything it has. So when someone identifies as the person who was betrayed, or the one who failed, or the one who lost everything, they're not just remembering, they're maintaining a version of themselves that depends on that memory. Letting go of that pain feels like letting go of identity itself. This is why so many people resist healing. Deep down, they don't know who they'd be without the story. They've built an entire sense of self around the trauma, the failure, the nostalgia. They say they want to move on, but unconsciously, they're still feeding the very pain they claim to want to escape. This creates a paradox. The past becomes both the source of suffering and the foundation of identity. And so, without realizing it, people keep revisiting their wounds, not to heal them, but to remain someone who was wounded. Even more insidious is the belief that these thoughts are productive. The individual might think, I just can't stop thinking about it. I need closure. Or I'm learning from what happened. Or even, I need to understand why it hurts so much. But from Tolle's perspective, these are rationalizations. What's really happening is that the pain body, the emotional residue of unprocessed suffering, is being activated. And like a parasite, it demands to be fed. It feeds on attention. It feeds on memory. It feeds on you. Meanwhile, the present moment, the only place where real life happens, where real change is possible, is being completely ignored. The now is not just overlooked. It is rejected, because the now, with all its uncertainty, cannot offer the same emotional certainty that the past does. The past is familiar. The present is raw, undefined, and, for those who have lived too long in memory, terrifying. This video is not about forgetting the past. It's not about denying trauma or pretending that suffering didn't occur. Instead, it's about exposing the unconscious addiction to psychological time and revealing the way out. Because freedom is not found in reliving your story. It's found in realizing you are not your story. You are the awareness behind it. And once that realization takes hold, everything can begin to change. In the next sections, we will explore in depth how the mind weaponizes the past to keep us stuck, what it truly costs to remain there, and the radical practices that allow you to finally return to the only place where life is truly lived, here, now. There is a widespread belief that revisiting the past is a form of healing. People say, "I need to make sense of what happened," or "I'm trying to understand why I am the way I am." At first glance, this sounds reasonable, even wise. But Eckhart Tolle would argue that most of this so-called self-understanding is not healing at all. It's ego in disguise. It's the mind using memory not to liberate you, but to reinforce itself. At the heart of this illusion is a dangerous assumption that the past is real, that because it happened, it must be who you are. But Tolle challenges this fundamentally. He states, the past has no power over the present moment. And more radically, he explains that the past does not exist at all, not as anything more than a thought occurring now. When you recall a memory from 10 years ago, you're not going back in time. You're generating a mental image in the present. You're choosing, whether consciously or unconsciously, to re-experience a version of something that no longer exists. And yet, the emotions feel fresh. The pain feels real. Why? Because the mind is not interested in the truth. It's interested in identity. And identity needs continuity. It needs a me that stretches through time, a victim, a hero, a failure, a survivor. So instead of letting go of the past, the mind weaves it into the fabric of the present. You're not just remembering a breakup. You're reinforcing the belief that you are someone who was abandoned. You're not just thinking about a mistake. You're solidifying the idea that you are someone who always messes things up. And perhaps most deceptively, you're not just missing the past. You're identifying as someone whose best days are behind them. This is the trap of psychological time. Tolle draws a crucial distinction between clock time, which is practical and necessary for day-to-day functioning, and psychological time, which is compulsive, emotional, and ego-driven. When you plan your day, you use clock time. When you obsess over what you should have said in 2012, or how your life would have been different if only you had made a different decision, you're lost in psychological time. And this kind of time doesn't just distort reality, it destroys it. Because here's the cruel irony. While the mind is busy analyzing the past, trying to extract meaning or justice from it, life continues. The real world, the present world, keeps moving, unnoticed. The beauty of this moment, the opportunity to act, to feel, to be, it all slips by while you're mentally somewhere else. And perhaps most tragically, the suffering caused by the past is no longer caused by the past at all. It's caused by your resistance to what is. This resistance shows up in many forms. For some, it's nostalgia, a longing for times when life felt simpler, safer, or more exciting. For others, it's bitterness, a constant mental courtroom where old betrayals are retried over and over again with the same verdict. And for many, it's shame, a loop of self-blame and regret that poisons any chance of growth. But no matter how it appears, the mechanism is the same. The mind refuses to accept the present because it does not match the internal narrative. It compares what is to what should have been. And in doing so, it condemns the now, the only moment with real power, to irrelevance. Tolle calls this the ultimate dysfunction of modern consciousness, living in a ghost world of memories and projections, while the richness of the present is completely ignored. And this isn't just a philosophical problem. It's a spiritual, emotional, and even physiological crisis. Because when the mind believes it is under threat, even if that threat is just a memory, the body responds as if it were real. Stress hormones flood the system. The nervous system goes into fight or flight, and slowly the body breaks down under the weight of a war that no longer exists. This is the price of clinging to the past, not just emotional suffering, but physical deterioration, relational stagnation, and the slow erosion of any possibility for real joy. And the worst part? Most people don't even know it's happening. They call it personality. They call it just the way I am. They wear their pain like a badge of authenticity, not realizing they are being held hostage by something that no longer exists. But there is a way out, a path not of escape, but of return, a return to presence, a return to life. In the next section, we will explore in detail what it truly costs to remain stuck in the past, and why the longer you stay there, the more of your actual life you forfeit. Because while you're busy remembering, life is happening without you. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. Living in the past doesn't just feel painful. It is quietly destructive. And the most dangerous aspect of this destruction is that it happens slowly, almost invisibly. There is no dramatic collapse, no single moment where everything breaks. Instead, life simply slips through your fingers while your attention is somewhere else. Eckhart Tolle describes this as one of the great tragedies of unconscious living. A person can be alive for decades without ever truly being alive. The first and most immediate cost is presence. When the mind is absorbed in old memories, the body may be here, but awareness is not. Conversations happen without being fully heard. Relationships are experienced through filters of old wounds. Opportunities appear but go unnoticed because attention is turned inward, locked in dialogue with ghosts. From the outside, a person may seem functional, going to work, maintaining routines, engaging socially, but inwardly, they are absent. Life is happening in real time, yet they are watching a replay. Tolle emphasizes that the present moment is not merely one moment among many. It is the only place where life actually unfolds. There is no happiness stored in the future, and no healing stored in the past. Everything that has ever been experienced has only ever happened in the now. So when awareness abandons the present, it abandons life itself. This is why so many people describe a vague sense of emptiness or numbness. It's not that life has lost meaning. It's that they are no longer fully participating in it. Another devastating cost is the loss of agency. You cannot act in the past. You cannot change it, correct it, or redeem it. Yet when someone lives mentally in old events, all of their psychological energy is invested in a place where action is impossible. This creates a subtle but profound sense of powerlessness. The individual feels stuck, trapped, incapable of movement, not because change is impossible, but because all attention is focused on what cannot be changed. Tolle would say that this is self-created helplessness. The moment awareness returns to the present, even briefly, a new question emerges. What can be done now? And with that question, power returns. There is also a more insidious consequence. The past begins to shape the future unconsciously. When old emotional patterns are not dissolved through awareness, they are carried forward. A person who lives in resentment attracts situations that confirm resentment. A person who lives in fear perceives threat everywhere. A person who clings to nostalgia unconsciously resists creating anything new because new experiences threaten the supremacy of the old ones. The mind believes it is protecting itself, but in reality, it is repeating itself. Tolle explains that this repetition is not fate, it is conditioning. Unresolved emotional pain creates a lens through which the present is interpreted. New relationships are filtered through old betrayals. New challenges are approached with old doubts. And because perception shapes behavior, the same outcomes appear again and again. This leads many to believe that nothing ever changes in their life, without realizing that it is the same internal state recreating the same external patterns. The body, too, pays a price. The nervous system does not distinguish between a real threat happening now and a remembered threat from years ago. When the mind repeatedly revisits traumatic or painful memories, the body reacts as if the danger is present. Stress hormones are released, muscles tighten, breathing becomes shallow. Over time, this chronic activation leads to anxiety disorders, depression, fatigue, immune dysfunction, and stress-related illness. Tolle refers to this as living in a constant state of inner conflict, a war with what is no longer happening. Perhaps the greatest cost of all is identity. When the past becomes the primary reference point for who someone is, growth feels threatening. Change feels unsafe. To heal would mean to lose the story, and to lose the story feels, to the ego, like psychological death. So instead of evolving, the person remains loyal to their suffering. They continue to define themselves by what happened, not by what is possible. This is why some people unconsciously resist peace, because peace offers no narrative, no drama, no identity to cling to. Tolle's insight here is uncompromising. Suffering continues not because the past was painful, but because it is being relived. The event is over, the memory remains, and the identification with that memory is what keeps the pain alive. The past itself cannot hurt you, but your attachment to it can dominate your entire life. And this leads to an unavoidable realization. If the past is no longer happening, and yet it still controls your emotions, decisions, and sense of self, then the real prison is not time, it is identification. In the next part, we will confront the most uncomfortable truth of all, why the mind refuses to let go of the past, and how this refusal is rooted in fear, resistance, and the ego's desperate need to survive. If the past causes so much suffering, if it sabotages relationships, drains energy, and distorts reality, then a logical question arises. Why don't we just let it go? Why do people cling so tightly to their pain, even when they claim to want peace? The answer lies in the structure of the ego itself. Eckhart Tolle makes it clear. The ego is not just a part of you. It is a false sense of self built from thought, memory, and emotion. It cannot survive without the past. In fact, the past is its lifeblood. To understand this, we must first see how the ego constructs identity. It doesn't define you by presence, aliveness, or awareness. It defines you by your story. I am the person who was hurt. I am the one who was abandoned. I am the one who had potential but lost it. These stories are not neutral recollections. They are emotionally charged self-concepts that the ego clings to like armor. They provide familiarity. They offer a sense of continuity. But most of all, they give the ego something it craves more than anything else: existence. Letting go of the past, then, is not just a matter of healing. It's a threat to the ego's very survival. Because the moment you release identification with your pain story, with your trauma, with your successes or your failures, the ego no longer has a foundation. It begins to dissolve. And to the unconscious mind, this feels like death, even though in reality it is the beginning of true freedom. Tolle explains that this is why so many people unconsciously resist healing. They say they want peace, but internally they fear what peace would actually require, the end of their story. And with it, the end of the identity they've built around being the one who suffered, the one who was wronged, or even the one who used to be great. These roles are seductive because they offer a structure. They tell you who you are, but in doing so, they also trap you. Another mechanism that keeps people locked in the past is the unconscious belief in justice through rumination. Many carry an idea, never spoken aloud, that if they keep replaying the pain, if they don't let it go, then somehow that keeps the other person accountable, that it honors what they went through, that their suffering validates the injustice. But here's the harsh truth. Rumination doesn't punish the past. It punishes you. The betrayal already happened. The mistake has already been made. The injustice has already passed. And yet, By reactivating it in your mind, you keep it alive in your body. You resurrect the pain and pay for it again and again. The ego also feeds on comparison with the past. Nostalgia is often mistaken for warmth, but Tolle warns that it can be a trap. The phrase, "those were the good old days," is seductive because it implies that this moment is not good enough. It trains the mind to devalue the present, and in doing so, it steals life. The person who constantly idealizes the past becomes incapable of seeing beauty now, not because it isn't here, but because they've conditioned their awareness to look backward. Likewise, regret is the mind's way of clinging to a version of reality that no longer exists. The phrase, if only I had chosen differently, if only I had seen it sooner, if only I had spoken up, becomes a mantra of paralysis. The ego uses this to reinforce the belief that your current self is damaged, that your future is limited, and that your best chance already passed you by. But this is an illusion. The past has no substance. It is a thought now, and its power ends the moment you stop fueling it. There is also the powerful emotional force of the pain body, a concept Tolle introduces to describe the accumulated emotional pain stored within the body. When this pain body is triggered, it doesn't want to heal, it wants to feed. It feeds on conflict, on self-pity, on memories of betrayal, on mental arguments, and imagined confrontations. This is why people often find themselves addicted to revisiting their suffering. It is not rational, it is energetic. The pain body has been active for so long that its presence feels normal. Letting it dissolve feels like something is missing, even if that something is suffering. All of this reveals a brutal truth. Most people are not suffering from their past. They are suffering from their attachment to it. The event is over. The story is being kept alive. But there is hope, a radical, liberating truth that cuts through all of this noise. The present moment requires no story. It needs no justification, no narrative, no identity. And the moment you fully arrive in the now, the ego begins to lose its grip. There is nothing to defend, nothing to prove, nothing to maintain, just being. So the real question is not, how do I let go of the past, but rather, who am I without it? In the next section, we will begin to answer that question. We'll explore the exact tools and practices Eckhart Tolle offers for dissolving identification with the past and for returning fully and finally to the power of now. It's one thing to understand intellectually that the past is an illusion, that suffering is sustained by identification, and that peace exists only in the present moment. But it's something entirely different to live that truth, to apply it in real time, especially when the pain feels overwhelming or the memories come uninvited. Eckhart Tolle never suggests that this journey is easy. What he offers instead is something far more valuable. Simple, powerful, and profoundly transformative practices designed to bring your awareness back to where it belongs, the now. The first, and perhaps most essential practice, is to recognize that the past exists only as thought. This is not a metaphor. It is literal. Every time a painful memory surfaces, you are not reliving an event. You are witnessing a thought in this moment. Tolle encourages us to become observers of our mental activity. When the mind brings up an old betrayal, a regret or a longing for what was, pause and say internally, "This is a thought. This is a memory arising now." This seemingly small shift is profound because it creates distance. You are no longer inside the memory. You are witnessing it. And in that witnessing, you awaken the deeper presence within you, the part that does not belong to time. Tolle poses a piercing question that can interrupt this unconscious time travel. Is there a problem right now? Not in the next hour, not in the past decade, right now, in this breath, in this exact moment, and more often than not, the answer is no. You are safe, you are alive, you are here. The mind will protest, but what about tomorrow? What about what they did to me? What about who I used to be? But those concerns are not happening now. They are mental projections, and by returning attention to the immediacy of the now, you begin to disarm them. The second core practice is anchoring your attention in the body. Tolle emphasizes that the body is always present. It does not exist in the past or future. So to escape the grip of the mind, enter the body. Feel your breath, not just conceptually, but viscerally. Sense the expansion of your lungs. Feel the air touching your nostrils. Bring awareness to your hands, your feet, your inner energy field. Ask, what sensations are alive in me now? This is not distraction. It is embodiment, and it is one of the most effective ways to return to presence. This is where Tolle introduces the concept of the inner body, the aliveness that exists beneath form. You are not just a physical object. You are consciousness inhabiting form. And by feeling the subtle energy of your body, the hum, the vibration, the stillness, you bypass thought altogether. You reconnect with being. The third practice is to observe thoughts without identifying with them. Tolle teaches that suffering arises not from having thoughts, but from believing them. When the mind says, "You are broken, you were ruined by what happened," suffering follows only if you believe that voice is you. But when you observe it, here's that thought again, you reclaim your power. You become the space in which thoughts come and go, not the thought itself. This requires discipline and awareness, but every time you catch yourself and return to the observer, you weaken the ego and strengthen presence. Tolle offers a metaphor. Thoughts are like clouds passing through the sky. You are not the cloud, you are the sky. And no matter how dark or stormy the cloud appears, it cannot damage the sky. Your true self, the conscious awareness beneath thought, is untouched by time, trauma, or memory. It simply is. The fourth tool is radical acceptance. This does not mean condoning what happened in the past. It means releasing resistance to what is. Resistance is the ego's attempt to fight the present because it doesn't match the mind's idea of how things should be. But this fight is unwinnable. Reality always wins. Tolle challenges us to surrender, not as a weakness, but as strength. To say, this is what is. I accept it. I don't have to like it, but I will no longer resist it. In that moment, the internal war ends, and peace, the kind that cannot be taken away, begins. Finally, Tolle introduces the idea of using the past functionally, not psychologically. There is a difference between using the past as a practical tool for learning, planning, remembering where you parked, and using it to define your identity. Functional use of time is conscious. Psychological use of time is compulsive. Whenever the mind begins to pull you into emotional storytelling, ask yourself, am I using this memory to act now, or am I just feeding the pain body? If there is no action to take, let it go. Not because it doesn't matter, but because it doesn't belong here. These practices are not meant to be mastered overnight. They are meant to be lived, moment by moment, breath by breath. And each time you bring yourself back, you are not just escaping the past. You are dissolving the illusion that it ever had control over you. But what about those who can't come back easily? What about the people who carry trauma so deep, so consuming, that presence feels unreachable? In the next section, we will explore when the past is too heavy to carry alone, and why professional healing is not weakness, but a vital step on the path to freedom. If what you're hearing resonates with you, you'll find real value in my ebooks. Beyond the Shadow breaks down Jung's core ideas, while Dialogues with the Unconscious gives you a 30-day path to apply them in your life. Both are linked in the pinned comment. While the teachings of Eckhart Tolle offer powerful tools for awakening from psychological time and returning to the present moment, it would be naive, even cruel, to pretend that everyone can simply let go of the past through awareness alone. There are wounds so deep, so rooted in the nervous system, that they cannot be dissolved through presence without first being processed through compassion, care, and often professional guidance. Tolle himself acknowledges this. Some pain is too dense, too ingrained in the body-mind system to be fully integrated without support. This is not a failure of presence. It is a recognition of trauma. Trauma, especially when unresolved, does not merely live in the mind. It embeds itself in the body. It hides in the breath, in the heartbeat, in the unconscious reflexes that are triggered before the rational mind even has time to intervene. For someone who has endured chronic abuse, neglect, violence, or systemic oppression, the pain body is not a fleeting visitor. It is a dominant force. And for these individuals, spiritual bypassing can become a trap. Using high-minded principles like just be present or you are not your past to avoid engaging with real psychological damage that needs to be witnessed and healed. Tolle makes a clear distinction here. The practices he teaches are meant to bring you into presence. But presence, for some, is not yet safe. For those with post-traumatic stress, dissociation, or deep-rooted emotional wounds, attempting to stay in the now can trigger panic, overwhelm, or numbness. This is not weakness. It is a sign that the nervous system has been shaped by experiences that exceeded the person's capacity to process them. And in such cases, the path to healing must begin with safety, not surrender. This is where therapeutic support becomes not only helpful, but essential. Working with a trauma-informed therapist, someone trained in modalities like EMDR, somatic experiencing, or internal family systems, provides a structured, compassionate space for pain to be expressed, understood, and metabolized. These are not substitutes for presence. They are bridges to presence. A person who cannot sit still because the moment feels unsafe is not resisting truth. They are protecting themselves from overwhelm. And before the mind can surrender its story, the body must believe it is safe to do so. Tolle never suggests that deep trauma can be bypassed through spiritual concepts alone. In fact, he encourages the integration of psychological and spiritual work, where therapeutic exploration brings the unconscious pain to light, and presence allows it to be witnessed without identification. The goal is not to analyze the past endlessly, but to bring awareness to how the past lives in you now. And sometimes, that awareness needs to be held in the hands of another, someone trained to walk with you through the darkness without flinching. There is also the reality of community. Isolation feeds suffering. Many who live trapped in the past do so in silence. They carry shame, guilt, or grief that they believe no one could understand. And in this silence, the pain compounds. But the simple act of being heard, of being validated, of being reminded that your pain is real and that it does not define you, can open the door to healing in ways that no solitary practice ever could. So if presence feels impossible, if the past feels like a weight you can't carry anymore, if your body reacts to memories with shaking hands, tight chests, racing thoughts, or numb detachment, then hear this clearly. You are not broken, you are not failing, and you do not have to do this alone. Healing is not a solitary performance. It is a human process. And sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is ask for help. In the next and final section, we'll return to the core of Tolle's teaching and bring together everything we've explored into a roadmap for freedom. Because no matter how deep the past runs, the truth remains. You are not your pain. You are not your memory. You are not your story. You are presence itself, and your life begins now. At the heart of Eckhart Tolle's teachings lies one truth that is both liberating and terrifying. You are not your past, not the pain you endured, not the mistakes you made, not the dreams that slipped through your fingers. Those things happened, they shaped you, but they are not you. They are memories. Thoughts held in the mind, emotions stored in the body, narratives maintained by the ego, and every time you choose to revisit them, to identify with them, to speak them as if they still define your worth, you're choosing to live as a ghost in your own life. But you were never meant to be a ghost. You were meant to be presence itself, awake, aware, fully alive to the miracle and mystery of now. This isn't poetic language. It's the deepest possible reality. Everything that's real, everything that has power, everything that contains truth, exists only here, only now. The past is dead, the future is imagined, but the now is where freedom lives. It's where you can breathe, it's where you can create. It's where you can begin again, not as a repetition of who you were, but as an expression of who you truly are, formless awareness taking form in this moment. Tolle often says, die to the past every moment. You don't need it. And while that may sound harsh, it is in fact the most compassionate invitation you'll ever receive. Because dying to the past doesn't mean forgetting what you've been through. It means refusing to carry it as your identity. It means extracting the wisdom, honoring the scars, and then dropping the story. Not because it wasn't real, but because it no longer serves the reality you are now stepping into. Imagine waking up tomorrow and not needing to prove anything to anyone. Not needing to justify your pain. Not needing to keep telling the same stories to explain why you're stuck. Imagine waking up and realizing that the door was never locked. You were just facing the wrong direction. That shift can happen now, not next week, not after one more apology, not after one more breakthrough in therapy, now. This very moment is the doorway out of your old self. Step through it, not by force, but by stillness. By becoming so present, so fully here, that the past can no longer find you. And if you're still carrying doubt, if the voice in your head is saying, it's not that easy, you don't know what I've been through, or letting go would mean letting them win. Recognize that voice for what it is, the ego clinging to survival, the story fighting for relevance. That's not truth, that's fear. And you are not fear, you are the awareness that can see fear and choose otherwise. So here's your challenge. If you're ready, drop the mask, drop the narrative, drop the idea that you need more time to heal before you can live. Comment below with the words, I choose presence. Let it be your declaration, not to anyone else, to yourself. Because your healing doesn't begin when you feel ready. It begins when you stop waiting. And if this message spoke to something deep inside you, if it shook something loose, then keep going. Keep watching. The next video is not just a continuation, it's part of your process. You're not here by accident. There's something calling you forward. Honor that, trust that, continue the journey, because it matters.